I'm doing this video not to show you my ugly mug, but to explain something really important that I've been addressing for over 35 years. It's to do with failing the driving test. Now, in the states of Australia where I've taught, and that's WA, Tasmania, Victoria and South Australia, there's some very different situations come up with driving tests. First of all, you've got to be ready. You've got to be ready and good. Now, if a driving instructor says you're ready and good and your nerves don't seem to be as bad as don't seem to be bad enough to fail a test, then there's no reason why you should fail a test. However, there's some very important things and difference in between states. First of all, in Tasmania, for instance, most people fail up to 3 times easily. In fact, very few pass the first time, about 40% probably. And there's a reason for that. It's called government revenue. Simple as that. Now, I've got a lesson today, for instance, where I've got a young fella. Well, he's not young. He's in his 30s, I think. He's said, I'm confused. He said, I've been for a test in Launceston and I've been for a test in St Helens. The only mistake I made was in Launceston, they said I parked too close to the curb when I did the parallel park. And in St Helens, they said I parked too far away. And yet in both situations, I parked exactly the same distance. And I said, yeah, that's obvious what's going on there. There's discrepancy. And obviously, different driving assessors have different understandings and perceptions of the world and of your tests. But also, don't forget, these assessors are not qualified. At the most, they'd just be a driving instructor. They have no qualifications except training and assessment Cert 4 they're given on a pissy weekend. I make no excuses for that. It's the fucking truth. So, you've got to deal with these idiots. You've got to do your driving test and do it again and probably do it again. So I always tell my learners in Tassie, do it 3 times. Now, there's something else I'll get as quick as I can here. Victoria's different. They get their revenue from speed cameras. They're hiding everywhere. So what they do, 80% of people pass their test, and it's very fair because the assessor sits in the back and the instructor sits in the front. They can't fuck with you, and that's really good. Victorian test is nice. And it's hard. It's just as hard as everything else, but it's very fair and you will pass 80% of the time. Interesting, isn't it? South Australia, that is a wicked, despicable and corrupt system completely and utterly, and you can't do anything about it. Their system of driving testing has been around over 45 years that I know of, and they are still using cones for parallel parks. They told me when I was in there 3 months that I wouldn't be allowed to transfer my instructors over. Now, every other state allows that. It is illegal not to. You're allowed to have mutual change of qualifications. They wouldn't let me do it, and in fact, they told me basically they don't want me in the state doing driver training because they've got their own way of doing things. Well, how fucking corrupt is that? That's South Australian government for you. So if you want to do your driving test and you've got a choice of states, do it in Victoria. WA, it's been a while since I taught there, but it's fairly similar to Tassie. But definitely corruption in the system and you can't do a thing about it. Good luck.